I wasn't an atheist or anything. I wasn't formally against anything. I thought it was all a big fairy tale and, it didn't make any sense. I always thought I was a person that had common sense, and I went, stuff doesn't make any sense. It's silly. It's silly. When I was a teenager, and the point I joined when I was 19 years old, May of 1967, I could not see the point to life. I wasn't suicidal. I wasn't clinically depressed. I just couldn't see it. I don't see a point of being a doctor or a lawyer, and then eventually you die. I go, what's the hope? My question was, what's the point to life? Again, I was very skeptical and anti-religious, but everybody was so cheerful and, at the meeting, having so much fun is the way I looked at it. I went, wow, what's going on here? And I just decided to try it. I don't exactly know why. I didn't have a reason. I didn't make a conscious decision. Just my hand went up at the meeting and I got stuck trying it. Right. So I did for 6 months. It was just very high energy. Experiences were very funny. It was fun being there. It was just fun being there. And so I would say as time went on, going to meetings 7 nights a week is the way it was in those days. I got a letter in the mail. It said, report to your draft board on such and such a date. And it was because I had stopped going to college for a while. And I took a break. And so if you weren't a full-time student, then you were eligible for the draft again. A big part of my life was living in fear. Fear of everything. Fear of everything. My mother was very fearful. I came to this world a very fearful human being. And so once again, I was like, fearful. Like, oh, what does this mean? I'm gonna have to shoot people. They're gonna shoot me, or it was very, very scary. The mid-60s, that was the first war that was televised, so we actually had images of what was going on there. You saw fighting, and we're getting the count coming every day, how many Americans were killed, and we were all the young people, we were all against the war. We were against the inhumanity of what was going on. I was very idealistic. That's why the idea of Coast and Roof really resonated with me when I heard about it. I said, I really want to do that. I still feel that way. I really wanted to change the world. I really wanted to see a peaceful world. It was just, at that time, it was overwhelming, the amount of violence in the world and oppression and suppression. So, in the pictures we were getting of Vietnam, it wasn't a pretty sight. I went to Fort Ord, which is where I did my basic training. They bussed us up there, and they put you in what's called a holding company for 2 days, where you just sit around and do nothing while you wait for orders. And the first day I chanted 11 hours, and the second day I chanted 12 hours. I chanted not to have to carry a gun or kill anybody. And I chanted to be able to help people. And so then I went to my company, and when we got to my final destination, which was the training company, I was really inside all geared up. I'm going to go get together with the captain, confront him, on religious freedom, all these great ideas. So I went in and I said, I told him, I said, I'm a Buddhist, and I need to do my religious practice. He said, okay, well, what does that entail? And I told him what we do and what I needed to do. And I didn't get any resistance. He just said, oh, okay. He said, how about if we do this? You don't have to stay in a big room, the bay, with 45 other guys. I'll put you in a room with just 2 other guys. And so you can do your private chanting in there. So at the end of basic training, I don't remember how many weeks it was, they give you your orders of what you're going to do. 98% of the people went to either the infantry or the tank corps or the artillery. There were 4 people out of, how many were in my company? I'd like to say about 100, maybe 100 people. I don't remember exactly. But of all the people, 4 people got orders to go to be trained as operating room technicians, which is like a surgical nurse. I wouldn't allow people to give me shots as a kid. When I went to the dentist, I wouldn't let him give me Novocaine. I had my teeth drilled without any anesthetic because I was so terrified of needles. And when I went to a doctor's office, just the smell, I would get faint and have to lay down. So that's my background. And here they're going to put me in where you're giving people shots, you're opening people, looking at blood. I was like, once again, I was terrified. I went, oh, I don't know, I was in shock.
How was that transition to starting this life in Vietnam?
It was, in the beginning, it was sobering. I remember flying over there and me being who I was, always very serious about life and what everything meant and how it fits together, so I was pondering and remember looking down in the plane. We were over Vietnam and looking at it, thinking about what was going on there and, fear and apprehension of the whole experience, the unknown. But even more profound was several weeks after that, people came into my new hospital in Quy Nhon, some wounded people from my old hospital. And when I talked to them, I found out what had happened is the Viet Cong had come down. We were on the side of a hill, and the Viet Cong had come down at night off the hill and had thrown what were called satchel charges. They have whatever TNT or explosives in them, and they throw them into the barracks. And my barracks, I was the first room next to the doorway. I found out they'd thrown a satchel charge in there, so if I had still been there, there's a good chance something would have happened not too pleasant to me, being in the first room. But as I look at it, once again, protection from the universe, even though I had stopped thinking about it, I was transferred out of there a few weeks before it occurred. I worked on a team that worked on when people had shrapnel in the head, cranial surgery. Then for a while I worked on a team, thoracic surgery for people that had shrapnel anywhere in the abdomen, which is very common, having either being shot somewhere here or having a grenade explode. And so I worked on that team. And then I had another team where I worked on arms and legs, and so a lot of amputations and some pretty severe stuff. Before the surgery, I would chant like 5 minutes for the person, really, praying, always praying that they would live and praying for the best outcome. And me being my typical deep philosophical self, I would look at them and, being honest, it was sobering. People died on the operating room table sometimes, and I would look at them and I'd watch the life leave and I'd wonder about, again, I was so young that I didn't have a concept of life and I hadn't studied Buddhism deeply enough yet. But I wondered, where did the life go? One minute it was there in their body and the next minute it wasn't, and how did all this work? And I even remember one time, somebody came in and he'd had his legs blown off, and we fought like hell for hours because surgeries lasted 4, 5, 6, 7 hours to save his life. And we did, but he had his legs amputated up to almost his hips. And I just thought in my mind, who'd want to live after that? And then several months later, we got a letter from him after he had been evacuated to Japan and then to the United States, thanking us for saving his life. And it was a profound effect on me, again, about the value of human life. That who am I to judge, live or die, or who'd want to, so it really made me start thinking again about the value of human life and how human life struggles to survive, and his gratitude. Even though, again, I was so young, I didn't understand the concept there's more to life than just parts of your body. But he was so grateful, and he wrote such a long letter thanking us. Yeah, it really affected me. Yeah, and so I really started thinking more and chanting more deeply about what's life about, what's the value of life. I did tremendous amount of talking to other people about Buddhism. Everybody I ran into.
While you were in Vietnam?
Well, I was in Vietnam. I mean, being candid and honest, we'd go out behind the barracks at night, we'd smoke marijuana, the cooks would bring food, we'd all get high, we'd have a good time, and I would be out there shakabukuing everybody. And they go, wow, man, that really sounds great. And I had this list of all the meetings in the United States. There weren't that many meetings at the time. This is 1969. And I'd give them the meetings to go to when they got home. And if they were interested, I'd invite them back to my room because I had my Gohanzen in shrine, and I chant with them a little bit. So I did that the whole time I was over there. Looking back again, 57 years later, and I get the privilege of viewpoint, I go, my life was protected so many times, and I can see so clearly the connection to my sincere practice of Buddhism to the Gohonzon. It's clear now. It wasn't clear then. I just was praying out of fear, crying in front of my Gohonzon, begging my Gohonzon, feeling hopeless, like, how am I going to get out of this mess?
Right.
But looking back, I can see every single time the Gohonzon's going, it's all right, I got this. One of my saving graces in life is I've always chanted a lot. My answer to everything was always chant a lot. Now, I tell people there's no rule. Some people, when I started chanting, I feel like if this is the zero line of life, I was like down here. And it took me 10 years of chanting to get to the 0 point, to where like the plant started coming through the earth a little bit. People say, don't you feel like you gave up something in your young years? You spent all your time doing this Buddhist stuff? And I go, no, you can't understand. I feel like I was so lucky to be able to do it. I have such a profound depth of strength in my life now. I am not afraid of anything or anybody. I'm really not. I'll face anything. I don't care what happens. I'll face it, and I know I can just keep moving forward and overcome it. With my practice, because of my practice, I have that strength of life. I feel like a diamond. That's what it's like. Like I was a piece of coal when I started out, and I had so much pressure exerted on my life that it turned me into a diamond.